Welcome to the May meeting of the Acquisition SIG. Um, Hope everybody's having a wonderful May. I know May can be a little crazy if you've got kids in school or whatever. You're having trouble hearing me. Can people hear me? Okay. Okay, I will just sit forward and I had IT look at my microphone and stuff, and they said they did stuff to make it better after last month. So, okay. All right. So I will just stay close forward here, and we'll go from there. All right. First, if anybody has any questions that they want to ask to the group, we can do some crowdsourcing and see what we can, share what we know about acquisitions and see what we've got. Otherwise, I've got a couple of things that we can look at.
I have a question. Does anyone have some good documentation on how to stick their serials or the databases into Koha for acquisitions and receiving? Because I'm sort of making it up and it's ugly and I don't like it. I'd like to see what other people are doing.
Yeah. We tried using serials and then we stopped using serials because
I'm not actually using serials so much as it's just like electronic databases that I just want to reflect in the ledger.
Ah, okay. Does anybody put their
no one has a solution? That makes me feel better.
Yeah,
I was just doing the old, empty bib, using a fake bib record and bringing it in, and yeah. Okay.
I don't know if in 2211 the ERM will be helpful for that. However, I'm not sure if that will actually solve what you're looking for, but that would be something I would definitely look at if you want to do that kind of thing.
Well, at least I feel less stupid now. Thank you.
Yeah, no. Yeah, we don't track our electronic stuff in Koha either. Okay. Well, I'll just start talking about some different things that I've been chasing over the last month. And then as questions pop into your mind, feel free to jump in and share or whatever. Okay, so I've been talking with Catalyst in New Zealand about the issue that we've been talking about on and off over the last couple of years about the end of year processing, or the end of year accounting, I guess is a better way of saying it, keeping track of, ordering things on the current, ordering things during the current fiscal year that will not come out until the next fiscal year. So we don't want to have them on this budget, this current budget, we want them on next year's budget. So there are a couple of changes that have been added to oops, hang on, my director's okay, and there have been a couple of changes added to 2211 that allows you to change the fund code for if you've got two active budgets, you can change the fund code and show that it's on next year's budget when you order, and then when you receive it, there's some question about that, but it should receive it on the same budget that it was ordered on. That's true if you are not an EDI user. if you're an EDI user, it still doesn't work with 2211. So I've been talking with Catalyst, and they had, so basically what happens with EDI orders is if you have two active budgets, this year's and next year's, and you place an EDI order, it will, Koha will assume that you want the most recently created fund with that matches the fund code. You want to assign it to the most recently created one. So if we order, just regular, and we have two budgets open or active, if we're ordering something that we know is going to come in this year, Koha will automatically assign it to next year's budget without thinking about it. Let me see if I can pull up this email.
So, excuse me, Rhonda, I'm trying to understand how this is different than we currently have, because I can assign any fund code that I want, even inactive ones. Like, so how is 2211 going to be an improvement to that?
I was hoping Barbara would be here because she was the one that dug into the non-EDI stuff. So let's see. Let me see if I can. Sorry. Basically, Christie, I'm not sure what, I think it may just be, I don't know. I don't know. I can double check with Barbara, but when she looked at 2211, she was like, oh, okay, I can see that this will work better for the non-EDI, and this we can make this work. I'm not sure what the problem was before. So you're non-EDI, right, Christie?
No, we use EDI. I'm not necessarily talking about the process I think that you're going into right now, but
Okay.
as far as I thought what I heard is that you said with 2211 we'll now be able to change the fund, and I guess my point to you is I can change that anyway in our current version. So I didn't know how that was different.
Okay.
I linked a bug there, Rhonda. I think that's the change that's coming to that in 2211. So maybe you couldn't do it after receipt.
At
receipt. Yeah, that's probably what it was.
I can do it after receipt too, though, Jason. I can, like, sometimes I'll receive books from a vendor, and we have, allocated funds, let's say for early chapter, and then it comes in and the selector will say, oh no, this should be in J fiction. So I'll actually go in there and I'll change it, the fund code to J fiction, so it, it goes into the appropriate fund.
I'm not sure then. I'm out of my depth here.
Yeah. So that's sort of after the fact though, right, Christie? That's sort of after you've received it? Or is it during receiving?
So to be clear, yes, I can change it after receipt, and I could change it during receipt if I do a manual change. And what you're referring to, Rhonda, right now is the EDI portion, which is going to be helpful. I was just trying to address the things
Okay.
I thought that you said were going to be changed in 2211.
Okay. Yeah, there's something here that got changed. Sometimes after an order has come in, there are donations or changes to funds, and the libraries may wish to change the fund that the order is allocated from. This bug will allow updating the order fund from the invoice page. So that's, I don't know. Maybe it's just a different, instead of doing it on receipt, it's on the invoice that it can change it.
Yeah, and I don't think you could do it on the invoice page now, but after doing some work with Kyle, my understanding was whatever is done on the invoicing portion does not affect our receipt portion. They didn't correlate because he had to write some code for us.
Okay.
So I don't know how that's going to help us, you know, on the other end, like looking in a cart and saying, oh, what was this assigned to, if the invoice page doesn't relate to that unless they connected them somehow.
That's sort of what I'm thinking has happened here. Because the description says, this bug will allow updating the order fund from the invoice page. So I'm thinking that in 2211, what you do on the invoice page will actually affect accounting, you know, like the funds and stuff. So it's always interesting to look at the test plan. It says, receive some orders via acquisitions, view the invoice with these orders, click modify fund on the received orders list, and confirm you can change the fund. Set some authorized value categories for funds, reload the invoice, confirm the category dropdowns changed when different funds selected, confirm updating the statistics field saved correctly, add an inactive budget with some funds, test the show inactive button on shipment.
That sounds pretty involved.
That sounds pretty involved. I got about halfway through that test plan and I started going, eh. I do have a 2211 sandbox spun up that I did, you know, so if we wanted to look into it more, we can do that. What I wanted to do is get kind of feedback. There's some options that Alicia gave. She's the one that's working on, okay. So I'm gonna go back to what I was talking about, and then we can kind of, if we have time, we can look at what actually changed in 2111 for the changing the budget stuff. We can actually look at it. Okay, so in the case where Koha chooses the wrong budget code at the beginning, when something is ordered, she gave some options for possible solutions. So option one was to create a new system preference. We all love new system preferences. That controls which fund gets chosen if there are multiple funds with the same code, either the newest, the current behavior, or the oldest. If using the oldest active fund, your current year's fund should get selected, assuming you always create funds in a sort of chronological order. This still leaves a bit up to chance, but would require the least change in process for catalogers. So basically what she's saying is put a system preference in where you can say, when I have multiple active budgets, I can say whether I want the default to be the most recently created one or the oldest one that's active. What I wanted to ask is, can anybody think of a problem with that system preference? Like the default, of course, would be, the way Koha is currently working, which would be the most recently created fund.
Well, I could say that, so we're then proposing that we are overlapping near the end of the fiscal year. So we're still anticipating receipt from the older fund, and you're ordering from a new fund. So what you're saying, Rhonda, is it'll automatically, so you have to have a definite cutoff point then before you create the new fund for ordering, right?
No, you would have two active budgets open, and then let's say, for example, we set our system preference to be default to the oldest budget that's active right now. So most of the stuff that comes through, you'd be ordering on this year. And then, but in the case where you want to order for next year's budget, at the time that you're ordering it, you would be able to go into the order, what is it called? Accounts tab. There's like 3 tabs on the basket when you create it. And you'd be able to modify the budget manually for the ones that are opening, that would be charged against next year. And then when you get that, when you close out your current year and roll to the next year, you'd make it inactive. You'd still have your one current year open, probably for whatever. And then, we wouldn't create a new active budget for next year until, June or July. And then that budget would have a more recent date. So you'd continue to order on the older current year that you were in. Does that help?
Well, now I'm confused because you're saying we would go in and manually change it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess that's my point. I can do that now. So I'm not seeing the difference.
We can't go in manually. I mean, we could, I guess, go in one by one and change them. What we're hoping to do is there's 2 things going on. So they would be, we could go in and change it, but then there's no guarantee that they would get received on the budget that we ordered it on. We would have to go in and change the receiving as well. But yeah, you're right. You can go in and you can change the budget when you're ordering. We right now, there's part 2 of this problem that really is the bug for us, is that we use grids for our ordering with our EDI vendors. And so the items come in with a fund code and already set. And the second part of the problem is if there's something already in the fund code field, we can't overwrite what's already there with, you know, it just looks at what the default is, what it came in as, and it will leave it that way. It won't change what we try to overwrite with the, I forget what the name of that tab is, acquisitions tab or accounting tab or something like that.
Can I share
So-
my screen for a second?
Sure.
So, here, let's see. Okay, so I just went in, we have a find away order that I just put in like a test invoice. So I'm receiving this, okay? So here you see the fund right here.
Mhm.
And right now I just have my current fund codes in here. So let's say I had created another active one for like 23, 24. That would be here as an option as well, that I could change it to that. And then I would just receive it and save it. There was also that's that point. So I'm not sure why no one else can do this part.
Because our EDI receiving is automated, we don't receive this way. It's all
Okay.
done behind the scenes with Koha.
So ours is too. So I'm misunderstanding you. So what you're saying is with the EDI, it's going to, you're saying on the invoice end, so like here's an invoice we have. So when you were saying too about like we can't change the fund codes here, I'm talking about a manual way right now. So, but if I go to the receipt page, which is available from the invoice page, it's going to take me back to, I could go into the basket and basically manually, I can now reopen the basket and then manually modify the funds from here, which is essentially reaching it from the invoice page, but you're addressing it from an EDI standpoint.
Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to get it so that it's automated, so that we don't have to, you know, on the receiving end of it, you know, once we tell it which budget we want it to go to, we would like the receiving part of it to be automatic. Like we don't have to go back in and figure out, did it receive it on the right budget or not? So we're trying to figure out a way to automatically indicate to the system that we have, so that it knows which budget it was ordered on and to receive it on that same budget. So, yeah, I kind of talked about the second problem that we have is where setting a fund in the default accounting, oh, there's the name, but the default accounting details tab was not applied to the order, and that's because settings were applied in this order. So we apply the fund in the vendor, on the vendor site with our grids, and when it's received, it's already set. So I think she said, let's see, her option would be to create a new system preference to control how Koha should behave if there are multiple funds with the same code, so that, you know, in order to be a roll from one year to the next and then have everything that wasn't ordered roll to the next year, you need to have the same fund names, same fund codes, sorry, and it could pick the most suitable one. Current behavior could be written to be based on the suggested system preference from option 1, or it could leave this field empty. If chosen to leave the budget code empty, when you add orders to your basket, you'd be forced to either select the correct budget code for each ordered item or choose the correct fund under the default counting details to be applied to all the orders. So I don't know, that neither of those options really seemed all that great to me. But I was just curious if people had thoughts, we use things a certain way. I don't, I wanted to get some feedback on maybe some, what do other people use? Do you rely on the fact that how many people actually use that default accounting details tab and use that to set the accounting details for your orders?
Rhonda,
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know if anyone else is ordering as far out as we are, because I know that that's sort of the root of the issue that we're, with the budgets and the two fiscal years kind of running in tandem because we order so far out. I'm curious to know if that's an issue for anyone else or how they're handling it if they are.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm sorry, what are you doing, Holly, that you're able to order so far out? Are you on EDI?
So we have a list of standing order authors that we order. This would be EDI ordering that we do through Ingram. And we order sometimes a year before it's published. Like we order what, just 9 months. I don't know. I'd have to look. I know, I think I just placed a standing order this week with books that are coming out in November. So I know that we've ordered them. They're going to be on next fiscal year's budget. But I think, and that's the kind of the problem we're trying to solve is that, so I placed the order EDI, so it looks like it's on this year's money when we look at our acquisitions module, but it's not because those books aren't going to come out till November. We're not going to pay those invoices till November, and that's next year's money for us. And so that's kind of what we're trying to get our acquisitions module to mirror our other money systems, just so we can track it more closely, I think. Am I explaining that correctly, Rhonda?
Yep.
Yeah, hi, this is Marcy at McKinney, and I'm sorry I just popped in late to our meeting today, but we also use EDI and we are ordering 6 months out on our standing order. And the way I get it to hit next year's budget is for our fund code for standing order only, I append the fiscal year. So our fund code is SO24, which I go ahead and start a new budget and I only populate that one fund. And with my vendors, I have to go in and at a certain point when most of the titles are hitting next year, I manually will change the grids to have the new fund code. You have a few outlier titles that's come out this year. You just have to separate them out. But that's worked well for us. So there are a few things that will come in earlier than I anticipated because the vendors, that doesn't happen much anymore since COVID, but you just have to kind of adjust that after the fact if they do come in early. But that's worked well for us. And it's because it's only one fund code that I'm having to append that number to with my vendors. It's not too much of a hassle to do.
So what happens, Marcy, when you grid it online with your vendor, you're gridding it with that particular fund code like SO24?
Yeah, so all of our grids include the fund code. And so at that point where the orders have tipped into October, well, that's our fiscal year starts over, I will grid them with the SO24 fund code instead of SO23. And then I separate them into separate orders. So if some come out in early September, then those I'm going to order with SO 23, and those will hit our current year budget. And I leave the new, the next year's budget is inactive, but it still will hit it if the fund code is distinct. So you can't just use SO and have it hit the right budget. I found that out the hard way. But it's worked well. I've been doing that for about 4 years now, and it's worked well.
So you need to go in, once it's invoiced, the EDI comes in, invoice comes in, you need to go in and manually change each one to a
No.
correct. No?
No, they will come in because the order line includes the fund of SO 24. So when the EDI invoice comes through, it will receive the item and pull in that fund code of SO 24. So when it comes through, I don't have to manually change it unless something came in early and I want to tag it against, it's September 20th and something came in early and I want to have it hit the budget where it arrived. That's the only time I have to monkey around with it, is right as we're transitioning.
So I guess that's handy because you must have a fund code for just standing orders where,
We do.
yeah, so I understand that you create it for that reason, but when our standing orders comes in, that we have to come in and they're parsed out into, is this adult fiction? Is this,
Oh, got it.
so we're unable to do that. So Holly, what we have done in the past, which is a pain, is that anything that's on order when we close out our budget for this fiscal year, is we've gone in and actually zeroed everything out and then, put the fund codes back in come new fiscal year, which I think, Rhonda, that's the whole point of your fix all that you're trying to get done here. So Marcy and I and everyone else doesn't have to deal with it.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. As little work as possible. That's my goal. But yeah, because we've had these discussions before and everybody's got their little workaround, people, McKinney, Marcy does, her SO thing that works for them, Barbara has her spreadsheets and stuff that work for her, there's all these different things, and it would be nice if Koha just had a way to handle this, that all of us could use, and not have to put a whole lot of extra work into, workarounds.
And I guess the only way that we could really do that is if we changed our fund codes every year,
Right.
which is like what, we'd put like adult fiction 24, adult fiction 25, and then we would all be able to utilize the system the way it is now.
Yep. Except when it comes to the closing of the year, you wouldn't be able to roll things over, because the funds wouldn't match from one year to the next. And that is that's an important part for us too, is to be able to roll those funds, not the funds, but the items that hadn't come in yet.
This is Marcy again. We also use shipping holds with our vendors like 2 weeks before the end of the year. So that catches a lot of it, and I can kind of mitigate that either manually. I have done the rollover where I've let those items roll into the next year. You have to kind of monkey around with your fund code. Luckily, I only have the one that the standing order is the only one that there's a problem with. But yeah, what I usually do, if anything needs to roll over, I kind of manually point it at the new budget. And then after I've done budget rollover, I go into the inactive budget and I append last year's number to the end of those fund codes. So I append to my adult fiction, I append 23, or I will after I do budget rollover. So if anything didn't get manually pointed to the right place, it wouldn't accidentally come in and hit last year's budget. Because
Okay.
for my regular funds, fiction, juvenile fiction, all of that, we don't utilize that numerical portion of the code. I only do that for standing orders.
Okay.
Well, I'm wondering because we've always just used our standard fund codes and we copy the budget every year, like, you know, adult fiction. Has anyone tried to put the fiscal year in, like AD 24 for all of their fund codes? And then does that work for you?
It would, from my understanding, haven't actually tried this. We would have to basically have two sets of grids then as well with each of our vendors, one with the current fund code and one with next year's fund code. And then at the end of each year, we'd have to go in and update, you know, all the fund codes so that they would match the new active budget and then the future budget. Yeah, there's ways to make it work. They're all kind of clunky. And it, you know, it would work. You wouldn't be able to just roll, you know, close out and roll everything over like we do now to the new funds. But it would be, you know, you could go in and point everything to the next year individually. That, I don't know.
Yeah, but you're right, Rhonda, that was a good point. That wouldn't work with our vendors for the gridding because you would be creating new fund codes. That would be enormous.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I, you know, thought about that too. And then I'm like, oh, you know, I have to go in every once in a while and tweak, you know, grids for whatever reason, you know, the shelving location changed or something like that. And it's like, I mean, it's not hard, but it's just tedious and trying to get it all done. And so, yeah, you'd have to go in and change all the funds in for each of your vendors. You know, well, we've got 3 EDI vendors, so. Yeah. I will continue to pursue this and see if we can come up with something that, you know, I'll report back next month and let you know, because I'm talking to Catalyst and I'm talking to Bywater both at the same time, just to see if, you know, between them, I want to be very, you know, go through all the details. Holly and I created a video showing Catalyst how we do EDI orders, because what we do with EDI in the States is different than what EDI is in the rest of the world. So we, you know, showed her a video and we showed her the problems that we're having now. Nick, of course, with Bywater knows what those problems are. So we'll continue I'll continue working with them and seeing what we can come up with to make this smoother kind of thing. Because honestly, I think a lot of the ILSs have you know, I haven't talked to anybody that has an ILS that has a really good solution for this. So if we could get Koha with a really good solution, I think that would be a real feather in Koha's cap to move it forward. Because this is something that, you know, all of us have to deal with, especially in the world that we're in now. So many books their pubs get pushed back or, you know, delayed for whatever reason, or, you know, so it seems even more useful at this point.
So Holly, what is it that you do? If you have them a year out, how do you code them?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
If you have your standing orders up to a year out, how are you coding them in the fund?
Sorry, I work in a hallway. It's very hard to hear. So we order them just with our regular fiction new grid. And so anything we're ordering standing order is going to be done EDI. So we order it on this year, and then we'll receive it on whatever budget or is active when it's actually received. So when our fiscal year ends, we roll over everything at that time. Sorry, it's really loud where I am right now. I'm just gonna pass that. That's what we do.
So you roll over everything to the next fiscal year, and then you manually go in and change the fund code?
No, Rhonda, you might be better at explaining this than I do. But yeah, we receive it with whatever budget it's received on is where it ends up. I don't know. I don't know how to explain the fund code on that. Can you?
Yeah, so, we'll just order it on the current year, and then we just kind of have a spreadsheet off to the side. Mostly this is for adult fiction. So, there's our collection developer kind of has a spreadsheet off to the side where she keeps track of which of these are, which of the things that have been ordered are this year and which of them are next year. So the accounting table or whatever in Koha, always shows fiction is overspent, but it's really not, because a lot of it is going to next year. Any other questions about that?
So, sorry,
Yeah.
so you don't manually change it, you roll it over the next year, and then by closing out, this is where I'm confused. If you close
Okay.
out the former year's budget, you don't have to manually change the fund code because the fund code is the same and it only pulls the active one?
Yep.
Okay, got it. Thank you so
Yep.
much.
Yep. Yeah, when we do the close, the year-end close, anything, you can, I don't know, there's different options. Haven't done this for 6 or 9 months yet, but there's options where you can say, take, everything that's on the fiction budget that is still there, find the matching fund code in the new one that I'm rolling it all into, and charge it against that one. And then when you're all done, everything is zeroed out on the old one, the one that you just closed, and everything has been moved over to the new budget that you're just starting. So we'll do that like right, hopefully like September 30th or, October 1st, right at that point, we'll roll stuff over right when we're ready to start ordering on the new budget.
So then
That's
why
all.
do you need to track them, Rhonda, if you're just rolling them over and then they're automatically assigned the new fund code?
Because we don't want to overspend what we, trying to keep, we don't want to overspend our budget, but we don't want to underspend it either. So we're keeping track of how much we've actually spent so that we can get as close to spending all of the budget, because maybe rollover isn't a very good word. We're not rolling the money over, we're just rolling the items into the next year. So we have a city that it's use it or lose it kind of thing. So if we don't spend, if we leave $300 laying in, or $500 laying around in this adult fiction account, we just lose it. We don't get to spend it next year. So what we're trying to do is keep track of exactly how much we've spent on this year's budget, because when we have this year and next year both charged against this year's budget, we really don't know how much we've spent on this year's budget. So we keep track of that separately in a spreadsheet to know, you know, how much is really coming in this year and what's going to be on next year's budget. Does that help?
Yes, so it's for spending purposes.
Yes.
Otherwise, it sounds like a better plan that we have implemented, because you are just rolling everything over.
Yeah. Yeah. And that part of it is super smooth and cool and works great. You know, if it wasn't a use it or lose it situation, we wouldn't maybe care so much, but you know, if we have the money, I would just like to, you know, I would like to be able to spend it. And, you know, I always am kind of sad if there's a couple $100 laying around, because that's, you know, that's 10 books or something like that. And that we could have purchased. We've always got holds that we can, that would be great to, you know, buy an extra copy or whatever. So that's what we do.
So we're the same in the sense that use it or lose it. And what I've found is, since we started outsourcing for cataloging and processing, my first year I was accounting for that like in Koha. I had a specific fund code for cataloging and processing. And then the director said, no, we're not going to take it out of our collection development budget. We're taking it out of another fund code. So then I had to work with our vendor to say invoices can't come into Koha that, you know, they can't include cataloging and processing. So they're doing that separately now.
Okay.
But what I'm finding is now I'm having to quote overspend, because I'm again a use it or lose it. Because when I order those in my ILS, those items, it's including cataloging and processing when I'm downloading. And so is anyone else having that issue that you quote have to overspend? Because every time my invoices come in, I receive items, then the amount of money I have goes up slightly because the cataloging and processing is now not included in that item price anymore. Does that make sense?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And the vendor, this is Marcy again, can the vendor not, can you not download the discounted price without the cataloging and processing? Would that solve it?
That would, and thank you for mentioning that. I'll ask them if that's a possibility. Do you use that, Marcy?
Yes, we still pay our cataloging and processing out of our book budget, so I don't have that neat little thing to deal with, but we do want it split out from, like, I don't have my selectors worrying about what they're spending on cataloging and processing. I just hopefully have enough set aside in that sub fund of the book budget. But yeah, when we download our on order records, it's our base discounted price without the cataloging and processing included.
Great, thank you so much.
Yeah. And then we have, well, this wouldn't work for you, but we have the cataloging and processing. When the EDI invoice comes, it funnels into the shipping field, and I have to manually change that to my Cat Pro fund.
And we had that too, Marcy. I think
Mhm.
Kyle, that's what he wrote for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then now this year we've changed that, but that was wonderful that he was able to do that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's similar to what we have too, where it goes into the shipping, the cataloging and processing. Or at least one of our vendors. Yeah, we've only got a few minutes left. So I did want to mention, I don't know how many of you noticed that the bug, what is it, 800 number, 8,179, the bug that's been out there forever about receiving multiple items at the same time has been pushed to 2305. it's been closed and pushed to 2305. So people that receive manually, you know, we do some receiving manually for a couple of vendors that aren't EDI, but that will be a huge time saver. So that was pretty exciting. So in case you hadn't noticed, that's out there. 20, what is it?
I put it in the chat box, the
Okay. There it is. Yeah.
817.
8179. Yeah, so it's receiving multiple order lines at once. I know that people have been asking for this for a long time based on the initial comment on this post, which was 2012. So that's 11 years. So it's been something that the community has really, that'll be a huge thing for libraries that receive manually. It'll be a big time saver for them. So let me just, looks like June 13 is going to be our next meeting, and 11 Central, whatever that means for everybody else. So I don't know, probably like all the other libraries will be right in the middle of summer reading or just starting the summer reading program. So should be exciting times. So does anybody have anything else they wanted to mention, something that popped into your heads? Oh, I just about forgot. What is the word that I want? Proposals are available. You can submit your ideas for presentations for KOHA conference 2023. The form is out there, and is it on the website, Jason? Yeah. Okay, there you go. Jason has posted it to the chat. So if you have an idea for a presentation, please submit it. We are looking for things, you know, the committee is looking for stuff to hopefully hit every module. If you have done, so the theme is explore the possibilities. And if you know, taken KOHA and done something cool with it, or, you know, whatever you, you know, explored possibilities with, you know, started a new program, did whatever. We are looking for proposals for presentations. So the deadline is June 14, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And yeah, June 14. And yeah, if you can get those proposals in, they can be in person, or we're taking virtual, right? I think.
I don't know. I'm not actually on the conference committee this year, so I'm not sure.
That's right. You're not. Okay. So the conference itself is going to be in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, September 20 through 24. That's a Wednesday through a Saturday. And if you can join us there, that would be fantastic. It's always a good time, you know, talking with other KOHA users and brainstorming and coming up with all kinds of ideas, meeting these people that you've only seen in 2D, get to meet them in 3D. It's great. So yeah, I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that, because there will be a couple of days, well, make that one day after our next meeting, where you can still submit your proposal, but just get started thinking about it, you know, whatever. And if, you know, we can maybe come up with something for acquisitions. That would be great too, because there's lots of areas of acquisitions where we can use some visibility to help people realize that we do need some more function to make it really easier to use. So, okay.
You know, there are enough libraries that aren't using the acquisitions module that somebody just walking through, this is how we use the acquisitions module. That right there in and of itself would be a great program.
Okay. Yeah.
Because there are so few people using acquisitions the way you guys do, that would be awesome to see how, just a run through of how it works.
Okay. Thanks, George. Yeah, because I know, for us, when we were on the previous vendor, you had to pay extra for acquisitions. And now you don't. So I think people maybe are just in the habit of not using acquisitions, where it really is. I mean, even if you don't use EDI, it can be a real, and especially now that we can receive multiple items at one time, that'll be great.
The other thing I would say about the koha-US conferences is if you've never done a presentation and you're nervous about doing a presentation at a conference, this is the conference to do it at, because it's the most forgiving and friendly audience you're ever going to have at a conference.
Yep.
You know, if I can get up and stand in front of a bunch of people and talk, anybody can. So.
Yep. And it's always good to get new perspectives, and it really looks good on your year-end evaluation, all that good stuff presented at a conference,
Or your resume.
and your resume. Yes, your resume too. There it is. So give that some serious thought. I've been bugging all the people here at Round Rock to come up with an idea for a bunch of different presentations. So
Saying to your boss, this will look really good on my resume, is a great way to angle for a raise.
there you go. Okay. All right. This time, I think I really have remembered everything that I wanted to mention. So have a great rest of your day and week, and we will see you in a month. If we don't chat before then, or see you in like the Koha general meeting, you can join us there, or any of the other SIGs or committees. So, pardon me. All right, well, have a good day, everyone, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Rhonda.